Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. And it is our pleasure to be presenting to you a new topic for today: 8 simple steps to build wealth through rentals and how to invest without guessing or gambling. And why should you listen to us about this? Because we have been buying rental properties since we were in our early 20s. And now we're a little bit older than our early 20s. I'm not allowed to say 54 and 55.
Hey,
And and our original goal when we were buying rental properties was to have enough income coming in from our rental properties by the time I was 40 and Julie was 39 that we could retire. And we did accomplish the goal, but it did take a year longer. And we got bored and then we went back to work. But the moral of the story is building rental properties when you know what the rules are and you're willing to actually put in the work can be a fantastic long-term play for consistent wealth building that will offset the ups and downs that, the S&P 500 might be experiencing or business investments might be experiencing. So when we go through these points today, and these are 8 steps to buying rental property in 2025, we're going to be sharing with you maybe some of the things you've heard other places, but we're also going to be giving you the perspective from our personal experience, but also from those of coaching clients. So we're going to be telling you do this, and then we're going to say this is what happens if you don't. Again, this is an unbiased perspective on buying rental properties, not one of these YouTube people that say that they're buying Bentleys and Bugattis from their rental properties because they, all the rest of it. We're going to tell you I think the unfiltered truth behind rental properties. And you might decide after you listen to us today that it's not for you. I have had lots of folks that have asked me about rental properties. Yesterday, a friend of mine from Georgetown, Texas, where Julie and I used to live, Rylan, he was asking me whether him and his wife should be buying rental properties. They already had some. And I said, go to Chat GPT. And he was going to, pay cash for some of these. Go to Chat GPT and do a little analysis of buying rental properties versus putting the money in the S&P 500. And I'm waiting for him to get back with me. But that's the type of thinking that we want you guys to consider having for yourselves so you don't make any bad decisions. Because a lot of people, when they get all juiced up to go buy rental properties, they buy them in these the markets that they don't know anything about. They buy stuff that's really inexpensive, and it turns out to be essentially a huge mistake. And so we're going to help you to avoid those mistakes. Now, before we get to our first point, I want to thank all of you, those of you who have messaged me directly about being one of my elite coaching clients. I've had some of the most incredible, I would say, pseudo coaching calls in the last 5 days that I've had in a long time. And it really is reinforcing my decision to get back on a very low level and private one-on-one coaching. If you are interested in being in my personal schedule, and if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know what you're signing yourself up for if I were your one-on-one coach. But if you're interested, text me directly at 512-758-0206. I'm only looking for 10 clients. I may have already basically had 10 people that have committed. Like I said, if you message me and I say, well, I'm going to put you on the wait list, that's just the nature of it. But hopefully there'll be some spots left if that's of interest to you. I'm going to be very particular about who I'm going to have as a one-on-one coaching client. And I want you to be very particular about who you hire as your real estate coach. So that's the point of the call that we're going to have after you text me at 512-758-0206. And when you do text me, please do give me a little bit of a bio, how long you've been in real estate, how old you are, you have a family, do you have kids, those types of things. Give me a little bit of information to work off of so that when we have a call, we can just get right to work and really focus on what's most important to you. Again, so if that's you, and if you're ready to consider Julie or I as an elite level coach, this is the top level of all the coaching that we offer. We've talked about this on and off for the last few days. Text me directly at 512-758-0206. All right, Julie Harris, let's roll in.
Okay, so 8 steps to buying rental property, or at least considering buying it in 2025. And did we talk about the newsletter, how they can get the drill down on the points? Because we might not get to everything.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So if you guys want the newsletter, there's a link down below in the show description, or you can just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. But like I said, the link is down below. All you got to do is drop your email address in, and then you start getting all of our notes. We used to put all the notes in the show descriptions on YouTube and iTunes, but then they basically have limited amount of the text you can put in there. So if you want our notes, which a lot of you use for your own social media, your own coaching and training of your team or your brokerage, the information's there waiting for you. Just subscribe to the newsletter. Go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Go ahead.
Okay, so 8 steps to buying your rental property. Number one is start with the end in mind and actually define what your strategy is. Start with that clarity. What are you trying to achieve with rental property? Is it cash flow for your income? Are you going to live on that cash flow? Is it appreciation and counting on that long-term growth? Is it tax benefits or wealth building? Maybe it's all three of those things. Are you planning on flipping? Are you trying to do a vacation rental by owner? You know, that was all the rage during the pandemic. And then there was a whole bunch of that and it didn't all work out. So, what is the point? Is it, and we have many coaching clients that do this, they buy rentals for their college kids to live in and they ride that appreciation up and they look at the difference between paying for like on site dormitory living, that's not cheap, versus buying a little house on campus or just off campus and having your kid as your tenant. That's maybe the purpose of your rental. So any of these things or all of these things may be your goal, but it helps you to set that plan in place if you know what you're trying to actually achieve. Would you agree with that, Tim?
I do, but again, this is where the cautious coach is going to come in because
Of
I've seen so
course.
many people get screwed by buying rental properties.
Yep.
The problem is if okay, let's say for example, the average price of a home in the United States is $400,000, and let's say you've saved up $400,000, and you're thinking about buying a rental property. I'm going to give you guys some real good numbers, and then remember that as Julie's going through the rest of her points. Julie, help me out with this because you know this better than I.
Sure.
Julie manages the managers of all of our rental properties, so the rent that you're going to get on a $400,000 house is probably going to be no better than, what would you say, Julie? 2,500 bucks maybe?
I'd say between like 1,700 and 2,200, unless you're in a very hot place, like maybe a college town or something would get a little more.
Okay, so let's just say 2,000, right? So
Let's say
you rent
2,000. Yeah.
2,000. Now that doesn't include, you're going to have to pay from that, take from that the obviously if you have a mortgage payment, if you did not pay cash for it, you're going to have to take from that the property taxes. You're going to have to take from that the whatever homeowners insurance it is. You're going to have to take from that, probably put into a little slush fund for the roof that it's going to need in 10 years. So if you actually did the math based on just what I just said, let's just go back to the idea that you're going to pay cash for it. So if you're going to pay cash for it, you're going to generate $24,000 a year from that. Again, you pay cash, so there's no mortgage, but you still have all those other expenses. I don't know what your property taxes are in your market, but like where Julie and I have some units in Austin, the property taxes isn't quite 2%, but it's real damn close. What is it, Julie? Like on the ones in
Like
Georgetown?
1.7 or 8. I mean,
Yeah,
here's the thing. If it's a great house that is appreciating, you're probably going to have high property taxes. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a house you want to own,
exactly.
right?
And so, but the big takeaway is the property taxes is going to take
A
out a
chunk.
huge chunk of your that 2,000 you're making, and then all the other expenses. So most likely, as you're going to on the 2,000 that you're collecting on that $400,000 house, because remember that no mortgage, you're probably going to be netting from that. If you're lucky, what would you say, Julia, a grand?
Yeah, if you're lucky. And
Okay,
that also assumes that you don't have an HOA or special assessments or all of the other garbage that can go on top.
okay. So now you're making $1,000 a month. Uh-oh, it went vacant. Uh-oh, it has repairs. It needs a roof. There's a leaky this or a, drippy that. And now your expense is out, your expense for that property. It isn't like this all the time, but you're going to have to assume a certain, and there's math to do to
You
go
need to
about
budget
figure,
it in because it is going to happen.
right? So every one of your rental properties need their own savings account. And so if you're, coming out of the gates, you're coming out paying $400,000 for a property. Okay, I'm willing to, take $12,000 net per year from that property because I'm going to get the appreciation. You got to take that into consideration. And also I'm going to get the tax advantages, the depreciation and the rest of it. And some of you, frankly, buying rental properties is the smartest thing you can do to offset, especially your federal income tax, let alone your state taxes. These are conversations you have with your accountant. But I'm wanting you to understand is if you're buying this, just to kind of stay on that line of thinking as a tax hedge, but you're losing money on it every single month because of the repairs, because the tenant decided to, break the lease, all these other types of things. Is it really a smart decision? So one of the rules that Julie and I have always lived by, and we try to get our coaching clients to do the same thing, is do not ever buy a property just off the idea that you're going to benefit from the appreciation. You have to be buying properties if they actually cash flow, and you have to do your cash flow analysis super conservative, assuming that even though that AAA great tenant looks great on paper, great credit score, whatever, their life can have issues too, and now they're not making their rent payment. So if you're not if getting cash flow from your rental property, even a paid off one, the tax bills still due. The roof still needs fixed. The insurance still needs fixed. I mean, our first quarter for our rental property business, the amount of money that Julie shovels out to renew the homeowners policies every year is astronomical.
Yeah, I hate first quarter.
Yeah, and it's just going up, and because
Yeah,
of guess what?
all the reasons. Yep.
We have some properties in North Carolina, but all of a sudden there's maybe a hurricane risk, so that's going to go up. You guys get the point? So when you're doing this, don't just see it as a panacea of cash flow, because really, especially when you're getting started, it rarely is. And if you're buying it just because of the idea that you're going to benefit from the appreciation, what if it doesn't appreciate? What if it doesn't appreciate and you're losing money on it? Now, what if you take that same 400 grand, you stuck it in the S&P 500? That S&P and the S&P 500 for the last 25 years is, I think, 10.3%. That money would have more than doubled in the next 10 years, right? You got to really do the math on this and think it through. Now, if you add the idea that you're not paying cash, which most of you won't be, and now you're buying with a mortgage, your numbers are even worse. Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're going to buy in really crappy areas. You're going to go buy,
You're going to go down market.
You're going to go down market. You're going to go to some place that you frankly would never go to yourself, let alone live in. And that's another one of the rules. You don't have to, your rental properties don't have to be so nice that you would want to live there. But one of the rules that Julie and I have lived by, and we have dozens and dozens of rental properties, is we always make them a little bit nicer than they're supposed to be and always charge a little bit less than rent. Because then we can be real choosy who we rent them to. But yeah, if you're thinking your solution to offset the negatives that I just told you is starting to buy cheaper properties in undesirable markets, they're cheaper for a reason, which means they're going to attract probably a lot of hairball tenants that are going to make your life, even if you have managers, miserable. Julie?
And or could be on the geographic fringe of being even worse if just a few little elements change in that area. So we told you at the beginning of this podcast, we're going to give you our take on this, as well as what many of our coaching clients have gone through. So, we're not saying don't do it necessarily. What we're saying is keep your eyes open. And there's so many people that say investment properties are the greatest thing ever, and you need to leverage your way up, and you can own 100 of these things and your life will be better and it'll be so passive. But you have to really go in with your eyes open. Well, so we'll get into, go ahead, Tim.
Well, when you and I started buying properties, Julie and I have been married for 34 years this year. And when we started buying properties, the S&P 500, remember, the S&P 500 is appreciated by 10.3% for the last 25 years. So we started buying properties really before the S&P had been on this 25-year rip. And there is no guarantee it's going to stay on that trajectory, but I bet it does. So if we had to do all over again, we would have still bought our properties because the next point Julie's about to share with you and the tax advantages. But I have to tell you, in many of your markets, the math just does not work. It just does not make sense. And again, don't fall prey to the belief that I'm going to start buying them in these undesirable markets that I know nothing about, because then you're really going to get taken advantage of. You're really going to lose money. And, I don't want that for you. So just keep that in mind, especially as Julie goes to the next point. And I'll tee you up, Jules. Oh, you have something you want to tag onto that?
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So the next point is, and this is how we got a lot of our rental properties too, and we teach you how to do this in Premier Coaching, and obviously as an elite client, is one of the best ways to buy rental properties is by having a form or an actual guaranteed home sale program. Julie?
Yes, that's right. So don't let that title freak you out. Everybody listening can have a guaranteed home sale program. We go extensively into this in coaching, but here's what you're doing. So we're shifting from looking at rental properties. This point is about how to generate some potential opportunity for yourself. You can advertise that you will buy their home in 90 days or less if it doesn't sell. Now you can adjust. That could be 120 days. It could be 180 days. Depends on what your market averages are and what your comfort level is. You can offer 95% of list price. One of my coaching clients offers 87% of list price and still gets lots of calls on that. And what he does is he uses those to find flips. And we'll talk about that in a second, but they must qualify. You can decide maybe they have to be moving up to one of your listings for sale. That's how our original guaranteed home sale worked. But what this does is it generates a steady stream of motivated sellers who are calling you. You may or may not do a guaranteed sale. Maybe that's just a listing lead to you. Maybe they were just curious. We had lots of calls that we wouldn't have normally gotten just because they were curious about that. Then you run the numbers and there's really no reason not to put it on the regular market as a regular listing.
Let's
but some of our rentals we own to today did do the guaranteed sale.
Okay, we're talking as if they know what we're talking about, right?
Sure.
So there's different versions of this, and we teach you how to do this in coaching. But the guaranteed home sale works basically. It's a listing tool primarily, as Julie just said. But if this is the traditional way it works. So if uh, essentially if you're moving up to a house that I have for sale, that I'll guarantee the sale of your home. I think ours was 120 days. We were selling in a balanced market, or we'll buy it. And we buy it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And Julie talked about this a little bit. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of advanced information here. You're not buying it for retail. You're going to buy it for whatever your guaranteed home sale program, however it actually is designed to work. The way we would do it is we would buy it for, so let's say the house was worth 400,000. So we would buy the house for usually a 5% or 10% discount. And that was written right in the guaranteed home sale contract. This is in Premier Coaching. This is something, again, if you're going to buy rental properties, and we're not against buying rental properties, just go in with your eyes open, look at all the negatives, which nobody else tells you about, right? So we'd buy it with a discount right off the top. And then from that, we would deduct our commission. So, and our commission on a guarantee was usually going to be 6 or 7%. And then we were taking, remember, they're moving up to a house we have for sale. So we were double ending the house they were buying. And so we take the commission from the house they were buying, and then we'd roll that down. This is what we did to come up with down payment. You guys following me here? And then on top of that, we'd have a trade fee. And the trade fee could be $1,000, $2,500, whatever. And all these things added together, we did the math, that it was going to be essentially, we were buying the house at 25% less than what the market value was. Now you're asking yourself, why would a seller do that? Well, a lot of them didn't, but they did call asking about it. But what really worked for us is when we were on listing appointments and we were essentially explaining to the seller why their house would be more competitive on the market, especially in a buyer's market, if the buyer who might be interested in buying their house, let alone one down the way, would know if buying their house, you guys following me in all this? Their home that they had to sell would have been guaranteed because it was all listed through us. I know that sounds a little confusing, but I'm giving you guys advanced coaching because I want to open your brain to the different ways you can make money from this. Go ahead.
Okay. So one thing that I want to clarify, because some of these guys are not used to thinking you are in advanced coach player mode. Okay?
I did warn them.
I know, is that the advantage to that buyer moving up is that by giving them a guaranteed sale, you are making them not contingent on home sale. With more inventory in the market, longer days on the market, and more stress. I mean, how many of you guys are sitting on listings where the sellers are wondering when it's going to sell and why is there competition? If you had a guaranteed home sale, you make that seller into a non-contingent buyer. If somebody comes through their open house and they've got a house to sell, even if it's like a little townhome or something, you could do the guarantee and buy their house, making them a non-contingent buyer. Sometimes you'll get a call that they just want the convenience of not, we had this all the time. I don't want to go through 40 showings on my house. I'm a private person. I don't want to have people coming and going. What's the guaranteed price? What can you do for me today?
Well, you get a lot of,
take it and sometimes they wouldn't.
You get a lot of you get basically the best sellers. That's really the bottom line.
The most motivated.
The most motivated, the have to sell sellers. You get probate sellers. You get, people that maybe not even probate, but they just have to move really fast for a job or military.
I'll tell you what we didn't get is a bunch of distressed calls, because I think sometimes people think from the guaranteed sale and offering something less than full retail, you're just going to get the bottom of the barrel junk calls, and you're not. We got a lot of really great, relationships and listings, and some of the rentals we own to this day that way. And so do a lot of our coaching clients use this.
We do. It's funny too. Some of our rentals, when we think about it, we actually remember, because we were in our 20s, we remember going to the seller's house and meeting with them, and it's just so incredible to look back about how scary it was at the time when we were making those decisions to buy those properties, and how grateful we are now that we bought them. So I want to throw this out at you guys too. So owner financing, or what I would be looking for, is assumable mortgages. Virtually every Fannie Freddie type mortgage, VA, is going to have an assumable aspect to it. That means that if the buyer bought, or the seller rather bought, when interest rates were super low, you can assume their mortgage at whatever their existing loan balance is, provided you come up with the difference in what essentially what it's worth versus what they owe. Now, if you're doing a guaranteed home sale, follow me here, you can use the money that you would have been doing to buy the house at a discount, essentially, then just to assume their mortgage with maybe even no money down, or not as much money as you might think you might need. The math is really what will make the decisions here. But when this right now, we're dealing with something that we saw when we got in the real estate business, the very tail end of it, the assumable mortgages at these really low interest rates are going to be an absolute boom for agents that know how to, when meeting with the seller, ask if this what the seller's mortgage is, and if you see a super low interest rate, and if you're in a buyer's market where there's too much inventory, but that seller, because of you, is making available for them, the buyer, to assume their mortgage at say 3.5%, you now have created sales gold for that maybe that listing that would have been expired or maybe super hard to sell. You got to open your minds to the market, the opportunities this market creates. The very fact that it is challenging is good. That means all your competitors are going to be stymied and probably not going to be making the right moves and knowing what you know. So yes, all of that, but use the guaranteed home sale. We teach you guys how to do that in Premier Coaching. The link to join Premier Coaching is down below, and expand your thinking. You don't have to come up with huge down payments. You can create your down payments if you know how to do a guaranteed home sale. You're doing the seller ultimately a favor. Everything is out in front of them. They're going to see what the math is. They know they're selling it to you at a discount. They don't want the hassle. Then there are a lot of people out there like that. So Julie, let's move on to the next point.
Okay, so the next point is about picking the right market, which might not be your own backyard. Some of you are all, I'll never have a rental property because it's just too expensive to buy in my market. And you're right, you shouldn't buy in your own backyard for some of you. So not every market is actually investor friendly right now. Look at job and population growth, look at low vacancy rates, appreciation, that it's not flat, that it's not depreciating, that it's not next to some kind of sketch neighborhood that's starting to encroach upon it. Landlord-friendly laws. I've had several coaching clients that were on the edge of buying condos in really nice resort communities. They thought that would be a great investment. And the first thing that we have them do is look at what are those rules under the HOA. Are you even allowed to have a short-term rental in that building? Are you allowed to have a short-term rental in that town or city? Maybe the building allows it, but there's rules in the village that say you're not going to get away with that unless you pay XYZ taxes and registration fees and all this stuff. So how friendly is the environment to something like a VRBO? It may be great and it may not be. The other thing about the VRBO idea is that those management fees, if you're not going to do it yourself, those can be 10 to 15%. It's not the typical single family residential management because people are coming and going and there's a lot more work involved, especially the ones that do a great job, which you want them to do, like a concierge type service.
This goes back to the point we made when we started. Do not buy real estate off just the idea that it's going to appreciate. That's a mistake. Right. Julie, do you remember what the tax code is for active real estate investors? Do you remember what that's called?
I don't. Isn't it called real estate investor? It's
yeah,
got a name,
but there's an actual number. I don't remember the IRS code, but you guys should explore it. You have real estate licenses, and if you're going to buy rental properties, you actually have more of an advantage if you are spending, I don't remember the amount of hours per year, but just Google or ask your accountant about what it takes to qualify to be an active real estate investor. Then you can actually write off not just the depreciation on properties, but you can also write off the time it took because you're a professional real estate investor, the time to look at properties, analyze properties and the rest of it. And you can use that as an offset for your taxes as well. Ask your accountant or hit up the Google or hit up the AI and just put an active real estate investor definition requirements and things like that. I don't remember how many hours it is per year. It's quite a few actually.
It is, but it's doable if you're you're going to have things to manage. You can account for like doing the books on the rentals and talking to your home warranty company. You can, I think it's doable.
And Julie, something else too. Well, Julie mentioned this indirectly 3 times, and I'll tell you guys codes words that you never, when looking for rental properties, if you hear anybody marketing that it's an up and coming area, that's too risky. That's what she's trying to politely say. So anything, exactly. Oh, I'm going to buy it because it's an up and coming area. No, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a proven, boring rental real estate market.
Absolutely solid, tried and true in our opinion anyway. Yeah.
And there's little formulaic ways to look at it. What Julie and I look for when we're buying rental properties is believe it or not, we love single family homes because single family homes are always easier to rent and to stay rented. When we got into buying rental properties, everybody and their brother told us we were making a mistake buying single family homes. And now look, decades later, we were not making a mistake. It was a complete home run. And if you don't believe me, just look at BlackRock, who's now valued at like $11 trillion or something. What have they been buying? Single family homes. So single family homes, but we don't want to buy expensive or move up price homes. We look for primarily first-time home buyer houses. Why? Because they're the easiest to get rented. There's always a huge demand for them from obviously first-time buyers, but from just about everyone because the payments are never going to be that expensive. And we also look for stuff that's in city centers, but not in up-and-coming areas. And we love towns that are communities that have at least one college and that are also close to the city center. Why? Steady employment. Even in the worst recession, generally speaking, the governments don't lay people off. Even in the worst recession, generally speaking, colleges and universities don't lay people off. And so you're always going to have, think about it, what I just said here, very high quality tenants that are always going to be looking for affordable single family homes. The American dream is not to live in a multifamily or live in an apartment complex. It's to own your own home, or at the very least live in a single family home. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I
Well,
just
yes.
firehoused you with, but it's served us well, and hopefully it will as you as well.
Well, that's right. I mean, I look at it as if we were to want to, I don't think we'd ever have to, but if we wanted to sell those, you can sell first time buyer stuff like this in those types of communities, right? So, like, for example, our Columbus properties, 1 in 11 people that live in Columbus is employed by Ohio State. I can tell you that half of our tenants either go to work at our TAs, they teach at Ohio State, their kids go to Ohio State. They're not going anywhere. We have tenants that have been in the same house for 10 years. That type of solid, tenant. I like that. That's a good thing. And by the same token, I know that any one of those houses we could sell in a week or less.
Yeah.
It's just,
We call it money jail because virtually all of our rental properties are paid off. We've been doing this for a long time. So our joke is we call it money jail, and we don't borrow against our rentals. Oh, what are you talking about, Tim? You borrow against your rentals, then use that as a down payment to buy more. No, we don't want to do that. We want to have, these are forced savings accounts. So when Julie and I started on our journey here now, over 30 years ago, we did not have the financial acumen to know how to not make stupid mistakes with buying assets and building wealth. We knew that there was so much more that we didn't know than we did know, but we did know paid off rental properties were good. So what we did is we bought these properties and we made rules that we would never borrow against them. We'd never refinance them, pull money out. We'd never put second mortgages on them. We would, if we could, save up the money and pay cash. But when we were getting started, we would always, one of the things that we did to keep motivated, I'm not prescribing this to very many of you, but some of you will appreciate this. And we did this for 4 or 5 years when we started selling real estate. After our first year, we would always have ourselves in contract on a rental property. Always have ourselves in a contract where we had to sometimes come up with, a down payment of some variety. Now those mortgages are paid off. We did that because it kept us under pressure to obviously produce, but also kept us from being wasteful with our money. We didn't go to Vegas and we didn't do a lot of partying and a lot of things that maybe other people in our position would have, because Julie and I were trying to create a future where when we hit 40, if we chose to, we wouldn't have to work anymore. We could live off the cash flow of our rental properties. That is a definitely advanced player. In retrospect, I can't believe we did it, but we did. It did require a lot of sacrifice. Yeah. And I would absolutely suggest that it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're getting started on the rental game, you got to take it really seriously. I'll give you an example. If you're in San Francisco, don't buy in that market. You're going to have to go across the bridge. You're going to have to go to Oakland. And frankly, it might not even make any sense there because of how onerous it is to be a property owner in California. So maybe you want to go to Nevada. Maybe you want to go to a different market that's adjacent. Maybe you want to go down. I'll tell you a market I would consider is there certain parts of Arizona right now that look really promising. Go to where, when you see, what is it, Julie, what moving line is it? Mayflower, that comes up with the list of where people are moving to.
Yeah, they have great stats, don't they? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you some markets. Tennessee, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Florida, some of it.
Some of it depends.
Some of it. The insurance down there is getting kind of gnarly. I would go to North Carolina. I would look into, states like that, states where people are moving to. Just look for the map of where people are moving. Go look for your own mixture, your own combination of things. Columbus, Ohio, frankly, is rock solid. Looking 43214, looking 43085, looking 43235. But 43214 is one of our favorite zip codes. And if we want to buy a rental property, that's where we're going to go first, for sure. We know it like the back of our hands. We know that they're easy to keep rented. The whole thing, all the mixture there is perfect for us and would be for you as well. Maybe you happen.
But keep your eyes open. That's our prescription. That's what works for us. And one of the things that we're trying to encourage you to do on this podcast, and certainly we do the deep dive in coaching, is to think out of the box. Maybe you live in San Francisco and owning a rental there and paying, $2 million just to be playing ball doesn't make sense for you. Open your eyes. Take part in the network of great coaching clients that we have. We bought one of our rentals from one of our coaches in Charlotte. We weren't normally looking in Charlotte, but it's a great little property. So open your eyes. I've got a coaching client that lives in Fort Worth, Texas. They're buying an expired, a multi-time expired that they can buy under market. It's in their neighborhood, so they can manage it. They're going to use it as a part-time executive in between houses type of short-term rental so that they can charge a little bit more for a 90-day lease or a 6-month lease while they're transitioning. It'll probably almost always be to their own clients because they're so heavily, invested in their own neighborhood where most of their listings are. So that particular house makes sense for them. Now, they were not hunting for a $700,000 rental. But in this particular case, because all of the math is in alignment, they can buy it a little bit under market. They have many different ways they can utilize it. They can manage it themselves and save the management fees. It's in an appreciating market. All of these things come together on that particular home for these particular clients. So think out of the box. Just because it's not exactly what you think of as a rental, some of you have written off the possibility of being an investor because it just doesn't make sense in your favorite neighborhoods. Maybe you think out of the box. Maybe you start networking with more agents and get into an investor group. A lot of what we talked about today, the guaranteed sale, being part of investor groups, networking with other coaching clients, if it's not a coaching client, it's the other things, all the things we talked about, investor groups, things like that, that could net you more listings that aren't rental properties for you. Just making your phone ring, having these conversations, not being a secret agent, it's going to lead you to more opportunity.
Yep, for sure. And go back to the point we started out when we're not going to get through all of our notes today. Obviously, we've had you guys for a half hour. And you want these notes, Julie spent a lot of time researching these. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe. So do seriously consider offering your own flavor of a guaranteed home sale program. We give you the framework of it in Premier Coaching. And it's one of the greatest ways to create wealth because you can actually go in your marketplace and you will find sellers. There always, doesn't matter how hot the seller's market is, you will always find sellers that just want to hit the easy button and just get rid of the property that would be more than willing to sell the property to you at a 25 or 30% discount. If you factor in then that some of these mortgages, if there is a mortgage, that they're going to be really low rates, probably a lot of them, you really do have all the dominoes falling in the right direction for you. It's not, it doesn't really make sense as to what our continued point was to buy in some of these expensive areas because the cash flow doesn't work. Do not be a sucker and buy into just the idea the properties are going to appreciate because again, you're going to have to support that property if it's vacant, even if it's paid off. And that's going to be a burden on you. Now you've bought 5 of them and now 3 of them are vacant. You guys get the point. So be really logical about this. And also in this day and age, in many of the markets in the country, it doesn't make sense to buy rental properties. I can't get it to cash flow. Julie and I wanted to get into multifamily investing starting about 5 years ago. We stopped even bothering looking because the cap rates and essentially your return on investment is terrible. So I don't know who's buying at cap rates at 2% or 3%. I don't know why you would do that.
By the way, I have the math. If they are in the newsletter, that type of equation, all that math is at the end of the notes if you want to figure out ROI and understand the math.
But in your own world, and if you start offering a guaranteed home sale, if you understand how the math works, you'll create more listing opportunities. You'll be able to offer your potential sellers more opportunities, in terms of buyers that might be interested in buying their house now. They don't have to worry about the sale of theirs and all the rest of it. Maybe you don't want to actually end up buying these properties because for whatever reason, it's not for you. Have some investors. There's not an investor on planet Earth that wouldn't be happy to buy a property at a discount. And you're now able to maybe flip a guaranteed home sale seller who you don't want to buy that property, but your investors will. The investor fixes up. When they want to put it back for sale, you have it already pre-agreed that you're going to get the listing. You guys get it? So you have to oftentimes create your own opportunity by having programs like the guaranteed home sale program that your competitors don't. And then you're going to see opportunity coming to you and you'll have differentiated yourself. You'll have made yourself something that is far beyond what you're going to get no matter how many TikTok and YouTube videos you make. You're going to be somebody that solves other people's problems. And don't try to make yourself famous. Try to make the results that you get for other people famous. Like I know who Julie Harris is because I see her sold sign everywhere. I don't look on YouTube to see if she's successful. I can see the results of her success. That's maybe where you should, I think, reframing your thinking about where you should be putting your energies when it comes to building your real estate business. So again, get the rest of these notes. There's tons of them. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe. It costs you nothing. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on the show tomorrow.